Hey Laura, Nicole here. All right, we're going to work on your relationship reading with Adam. I was going to mention to you, I pulled some cards for you just because sometimes it's nice to get additional kind of info about how to help someone. And I just asked what what your guys wanted you to know. And I pulled the Emperor card reversed, and I pulled the Two of Swords. I pulled this one, and I used the Afterthoughts deck. It's sort of like it takes the Rider Waite. I don't know if you can even see that. Sorry, my light's not great. It takes the Rider Waite deck, and then it just shows you what happened like right after. So this is basically the Emperor card, but you can see there's like it's kind of the perfect card for two Aries. You see all the sheep, the ram. So it's now I pulled it. And it was reversed. This card to me has a feel, it has to do with sacrifice. If you think of a ram, the ram is a sacrificial animal. It also has to do with authority. He's sitting, he's the emperor, he's the king, he's the one sort of in charge. The fact that it's reversed sort of indicates perhaps a weakening of the king, so to speak. Another thing that I pulled was the Two of Swords. So this one looks like, here's it upright. You can see it says two guys fighting. And there's a woman with a blindfold on. And then I was looking at your guys' synastry before I got in here, and I pulled this one reversed too. And your group karma might be that he was the other man in a past life, like a husband in a past life, a brother perhaps, or because your south node's ruled by your Mercury in the 10th house, and it's a Mercury in Aries conjunct the sun. Those all feel to me like a husband, like the other husband, maybe the second husband. But the fact that then your sun and Mercury and your Ceres and your Chiron all fall in his 8th house, it could even be a man that was somebody that other people didn't know about, or there could have been an element of him even dying on you in a past life. So there's like several directions we can go with this. Mainly it feels as though there's some type of group karma with you guys that's here to be purified and to be taken care of. When I then pulled these oracles that I also enjoy using, it talks about, I just asked what's the deeper sort of lesson for the two of you, and it talked about it pulled the Aries 12 the Aries 12 oracle, which is not directly attached to any of your Aryan planets, I don't think. Let me just double check here, make sure I'm not saying the right thing. Yeah, that's right. Your MC, though, the location of your MC, I found this kind of interesting because oh no, actually that's not the thing I'm looking at here. Sorry, I apologize. Anyway, so this has to do with loyalty, and it has to do with making decisions where we have the Two of Swords crossed does have to do with a decision that needs to be made where we feel a little conflicted. And when the eyes are covered, that means we're not supposed to be making this decision consciously, but we're supposed to be going into our unconscious knowingness about what's the right decision here. And it was interesting, the symbol that I pulled from the oracle was a breeze carries a soap bubble thousands of miles. I thought that was fascinating because Adam's there visiting. And you think of a soap bubble, it's very easy to pop. It's kind of an ephemeral thing. So I'm sort of wondering if, and the other phrases were a crowd of people sensing a sudden shift in group karma, the wind blows white sheets hung on a line to dry, etc. So there, like I said, there might be something that has to do with your karma that you share together with one another that we may sort of need to be liberated from. If you look at your synastry with him, and I'm kind of bouncing around, I just wanted to start with this and then I'll go into a more sort of systematic reading of the synastry. But if you look at the synastry, you'll see that your Uranus is opposite his sun. And your Mercury, which is the ruler of your south node, it's like right on top of his sun. It's at the same degree, at that 27th degree of Aries. And let's see, your Uranus you've got at it's just barely kind of popped there into Scorpio. So Uranus is generational, but you're sort of here to liberate him. There's something about the relationship you have with him where there is an element of you knowing that there's a freeing up or a liberating. Maybe in a past life, who knows? You may have had multiple past lives with this person. You may have had no past lives with this person. I think the fact that the ruler of your south node is conjunct his sun would sort of indicate that maybe you did have a significant past life, and the fact that his sun's in your 10th house, it's like someone who is, a father figure or a husband, someone that was like an authority figure for you. Could have even been an older brother because it's conjunct your Mercury, which ties a bit more into kind of the sibling vibe or the other, right? So like the other man in your life. You could have even been male in a past incarnation. There's that as well, with the ruler of your South Node falling in the 10th house. You could have been like a fellow soldier, and you might have even shared a woman. It's like this can play out in a lot of different ways. So the point being, in this incarnation, you have this draw to each other, which sounds like it's legitimate. I don't think that it's the case that you guys didn't have, past lives together. I think that you probably did. I'm just kind of wondering, yeah, what was it exactly? Like, what's the point of you coming together again? And if it's one where with this love triangle, because love triangles bring out some really important material that have to do with the self versus the other. And as an Aries, you come forward with this Aries energy, as does he. Aries can be a selfish sign. It can be self-motivated. I have an Aries moon, so it's no, I don't mean that offensively, but in your chart, you've got your moon in Cancer in the 12th, and that moon placement is one that can be also, it's the Piscean side of things can be really selfless. It can also be one where we give too much and where we get hurt by people because there is this not listening to our own true emotional needs, like the need to be nurtured and to be protected, and we'll go looking outside of ourselves for answers. And sometimes that can show up in relationships. So the moon also being conjunct Saturn, even though it's a wider conjunction, there is perhaps a denial of one's emotions or what you really need to feel safe and secure. And moon in Cancer is really sensitive at the heart. It's really like tender, and it wants to be loved. You do have other things like a Venus in Gemini, which appreciates lots of different perspectives on love and romance. So the fact that you said you're not maybe looking for like a traditional romantic relationship, that's totally valid. I can see that. And you're also an Aries. You've got a Sun, a Mercury, and a Ceres, Chiron, MC, Jupiter, all in Aries, being ruled by a Mars and Pisces. The one thing about this combination, we can sometimes not necessarily see our actions very clearly. And it's kind of, Donald Trump's got his Mars in the 12th house. It's kind of there's some similar traits here to sort of, we can be escapist. We can look for, on the high side, connection through sexual contact. I dated an Aries who's got a Mars in Pisces, and he's a great lover, like spiritually very good at like connecting sexually, which can be the power of this, but also there can be the escaping of like the reality of just life, I suppose. I think the fact that your South Node's in the 11th house in Gemini, to me, that one, as an Aries, 10th house Aries, that South Node placement feels like past lives where we maybe lived two lives. We might have been one person on the exterior that was the accepted version of what we were supposed to be, that society said we were supposed to be. We may have had another part of ourselves that was like totally different, that was kind of hidden and sort of shadow. So the fact that Venus is also conjunct your South Node, it's a Venus in Gemini, you may have had more than one love in a past life, and that might just be part of your journey in this incarnation. You could have also been, quite simply, with Venus in the 11th, you could have been a prostitute in a past life. You may have been female and who had multiple lovers, but they were strangers. They're people that she didn't know. And the fact that you asked me what his Chiron conjunct your Venus means is he could have been one of your clients in a past incarnation, Chiron to the Venus, because Chiron is Virgo, 6th house, that has to do with work. And with exactly on your Venus in this particular, because you can't ask about a single aspect, because it depends on the sign placement, it depends on the whole chart, right? It depends on how everything is connecting. And Chiron to Venus says that there's healing to be done in the area of romance, in the area of socially connecting with another person. There's some sort of healing to be done. In Gemini, has to do with what it is you call love and romance, gaining a different perspective on it. Both of you are sort of supposed to come together to sort of gain some new information on love and romance and relationships. And so when I hear you on the one hand say that, you're curious about this relationship and you're willing to pay a lot of money to look at a relationship chart with this person that you're not actually wanting to consummate a relationship with, you said that you don't think anything's going to actually come of the relationship, but you want to learn the astrology. I wonder if that's totally, like all the truth, because to me, I feel like you probably have some interest in karmically understanding this person because you probably have a connection to him, so that's totally valid. And the question is, what is it about that relationship? Is he perhaps from a past incarnation a lover? Maybe, like I said, maybe he was a client in a past life. And maybe that was the relationship. The fact that your Mars also falls into a sixth house and your Mars is in Pisces could indicate that you maybe gave him comfort in a past incarnation as a servant, and you may be doing the same thing in this life. Your Mars also is square, as you'll see. It squares, it looks like Chiron, his Chiron. So that can be a painful aspect between two people. His Chiron, the wounds that he holds and the guilt that he has and the et cetera, that he may be holding about his relationship to the truth, because Chiron in the ninth, if his birth time is right, because his birth time sounds like it might be a little bit of a guess, but Chiron in the ninth can be someone who needs to heal their relationship to truth, and his Mars in Taurus in the ninth can also be someone who has a strong appetite, whether it's sex or food or whatever, just for, there's a desire for amplified kind of physical experiences with Mars and Taurus in the ninth. He's looking for truth through the physical body, through this physical interface with another person. He's got that ruled by by Ceres. I use Ceres as the ruler of Taurus, and that's in Gemini. So conjunct Chiron. So he needs to perhaps maybe heal his relationship to his physical body, and to the things he tries to hold on to, and to the truths that he does or doesn't tell himself. Because if we're dealing with somebody who has a girlfriend who's moved, there's like that reality, and she might be a gold digger, like you said, she's like a quadruple or whatever, Capricorn type, and I know lots of those, so I hear where you're coming from. So we don't know what her intention is, but the point is he has a girlfriend. He's made a commitment to someone who's moved or whatever. But now if he's like coming after another person that he's not in a relationship with, there's an element of lying. It's just that simple. Unless everybody's on board and everybody's like, okay, sure, we're in an open relationship. We can be with whomever we want. My mom's first marriage was an open marriage. So trust me, I'm not like, it seemed like you thought I was judging you, and I'm not. I'm just saying, are we being honest does everybody know what's going on? That's all. You just don't want to build any karma for yourself that's gonna, it's negative. That's it. You just trying to help you prevent karma buildup, negative karma, right? Because I do think what comes around goes around. So I can see why you have a draw to each other, but it may be one that is about, like that oracle said, sort of making a decision. And if there's an element here, you are an Aries, and Aries are competitive. And if there's a part of you that's competitive and is, you may definitely have feelings for this person, but if there's also the part of you that just wants him, just to get him, to have him, but then doesn't really want him, and same with him, the pursuit of each other. Maybe that's just, it's exciting. Again, I have an Aries moon. It's fun. In fact, my moon is like right by his moon. So I know this energy very, very well. It's exciting and powerful and fun to pursue romantically, right? And to need passionate experiences. And so the question is just, what's the purpose here? And I feel like, there's just a few things happening between the two charts. So let me kind of go through what's falling from him kind of into your chart. Because we don't for sure know if he's 4 p.m. Usually when it's exactly on the hour like that, it's not accurate. We'll assume that it is, but a lot of times it's not. So let's just go through. So he's got his sun in your 10th. So again, that's going to activate, lands on the ruler of your south node. So this is activating something in you that says this person feels like a significant, important person to me. And on top of that, perhaps from a past life, a man who was someone who was important, that maybe there was something to do with my reputation or who I was, my label, my name, what I called myself in a past life. Okay. So because your south node's in the 11th house and it's in Gemini, it can indicate you may have had a job, a reputation where you were a rebel of some kind, or you were an outlier in society. You did something for work and career that may have been outside the realm of, the norm. You could have just been a pioneer too, you could have just been someone who was like living on the edges, the fringes of society, quite literally, because you like lived in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, his sun falls in your 10th house, so he's going to feel like someone significant. We've got then his Aries, Moon, Mercury, and Venus all in your 9th house and conjunct your Jupiter. So that's going to activate in you a sense that this person feels right, they feel true. The way that he pursues you, or the things he says to you, it's going to trigger in you, ooh, yeah, this feels good to me, this feels right to me, it feels true to me. It looks like his Venus is retrograde. So first of all, I will say people with Venus in Aries, male and female, tend to like to pursue. I have seen with men with Venus and Aries, there can be a little bit of a sexist thing that can happen. There can be a devaluation and an objectification of women. So that is possible. And in particular, it's a Venus retrograde. So we've got somebody who has some issues when it comes to knowing how to sort of do love and romance, right? And Venus isn't fully super duper comfortable in Aries, and it tends to be really impetuous and spontaneous. It tends to jump into things without kind of thinking. You have a Venus in Gemini, so these work well together, right? Because like your desire for different experiences and the tendency to get bored is activated by the fun part of him that is Aryan, that is like searching and seeking and going after something. It's going to make your Venus, and it's just exciting. It's fun. And his Venus is conjunct Mercury, which also makes his Venus feel a little bit like Gemini, a little bit like your Venus in Gemini. Both of you guys are probably, I mean, fidelity, the traditional idea of marriage and being with one partner is difficult for Venus and Geminis. It's difficult for those who have kind of the strong Mercury Venus stuff happening in their charts. It's just because there's a need for different perspectives, you know, seeing it from this angle and then this angle. The Mercury in Aries can be one. You guys both have this. Your Mercury is conjunct your Sun. His Mercury is conjunct his Venus. It's how you look at the world. You know, Mercury conjunct the Sun, like yours, as tight as it is, can be really hard to see things outside of our own vantage point, to see things away from our own perspective. And his Sun lands right on top of your Mercury, so you're just seeing him. You know, and the fact that he's got that ruled by a Mars and Taurus, the way he is, if you're hoping for him to change, very good chance it's not going to happen. Mars and Taurus people, especially if it's an Aries, it's very hard, very difficult for Mars and Taurus types. Not that they can't, but they tend to stay there. They get stuck. They get stuck doing the same things. And so it takes a very evolved person to shift. And so, you know, that being said, his Mercury in your ninth, his Venus there, his moon in Aries in the ninth, I don't know, this feels like a huge learning lesson. It feels like a person that's going to trigger in you a desire to learn and to understand the truth on a spiritual level, which is exactly what it sounds like you're having me do by looking at this, right? Okay, then we have his descendant, which falls in your eighth house. His descendant, if his birth time is correct, that is, it's the thing that he's going to marry himself to, okay? It's in Pisces. That is a placement where there can be a lot of dreaming or fantasizing about the ideal partner. My son is an Aries sun with a Venus in Pisces, actually, in his seventh house. So he's a little different because he idealizes his relationships with others, dreams about them. Your guy is more like he's going to go looking for them. If it's like the projection of his attractiveness, he's going to hand it over to other people. A woman finding him sexy and attractive and wanting him and talking to him is going to make him feel valid. Okay, so it's just going to turn him on. You know, it's ruled by his Mars in the ninth, so it's going to be the place where he goes to look for his truth is through his penis. Not to be, you know, gross, but you know, or whatever. But really, and so having his descendant in your eighth, that's the Scorpio house. You know, it's where your Mars is at. So definitely, to me, feels like a nice matchup for a sexual partner for sure. The fact that your Mars falls in his sixth house, I don't like as much because then you're like his servant. You know, you're like his sex servant and at his beck and call. And Mars and Pisces can have a hard time with boundaries. They can have a hard time saying no. And that is squaring his Chiron, Mars square Chiron, which can be a painful aspect. You know, that can be one that it can be sexually exciting at first, but it can end up being quite painful down the road because it's putting you in a position of settling, okay? Then we've got his Jupiter. So his Jupiter's in your seventh. And I'm not going into all of the inner aspects because that would take, you can spend hours and hours on a synastry chart. I'm just kind of pointing out the main things. I will say, well, I'll hold off on that. Okay, so his Jupiter in the seventh. Jupiter is a teacher. Jupiter is about truth. It's a Jupiter in Aquarius, so he is teaching you about unorthodox, you know, relationships. And his Jupiter is, see, does he have anything in Sag? I guess he's got his IC, his Uranus, or in Sag, it's kind of generational. His IC, so like the woman for him, the wife even. With that being ruled by a planet that's in Aquarius, he may go looking for that even with people he doesn't even know, or strangers even, you know. Like, this does feel like someone who in a past life visited, you know, may have visited a brothel a time or two. So, because he might have been a soldier, you know, he may have been someone who needed comfort because he was away from home, you know, for long periods of time, and that's just what guys do and did and do. So his Jupiter, though, it's in conjunct your Saturn, which you have in the 12th house, right? That's Saturn in Cancer to me, ruled by a moon in Cancer, feels like It can be sadness, it can be lack of emotional connection. This interaspect is one that there's some healing that needs to be done when we have inconjuncts between two people. So his truth about being free is in conjunct your deeper truth about you needing to feel loved and to feel like you belong somewhere. So while you might be open with the Venus part of you and the Mars part of you that can play and explore sexually on a deeper level, you're not being very honest with yourself if you say you don't want to feel loved and that there's like the belonging thing happening. You may deny that to yourself from yourself because of the Saturn conjunct the Moon, right? So the deeper to really be happy would be to find a partner who's really fun and playful and open, but also who loves you and who's with you. And whether, and maybe you don't want that. Maybe you are okay with like giving of yourself, to people and like experiencing that and then moving on to something else. Because you do have a Venus in the 11th house, which can be open to exploring sexually without it being in a relationship, right? So anyhow, then when we talk about, let's see, you've got Jupiter, it looks like, oh yeah, and his Jupiter makes a little sextile to your Neptune. That's kind of generational. That feels spiritual. Again, it's like spiritual lessons to be learned, karmic lessons to be learned from one another relative to relationship and to you and your identity and who it is you are. Neptune in the 5th house really can kind of indicate, I'm just not really seeing myself clearly. It can also indicate someone who has some fantasies and dreams about doing something with their life that is quite, it's actually really sensitive. Same with the Moon in Cancer. Like, I think who you are is actually a very sensitive person. And so if you deny that about yourself, that's possible. You're still in Aries, but you do have a Moon in Cancer. I just feel like there's parts to yourself that you maybe either keep hidden from yourself or are hidden from yourself. And maybe he's helping you see that. The Jupiter in the 7th, it's going to sort of say he's a relationship. Is a relationship with someone who's bringing perhaps some good things to your life. He's bringing truth, though. He's showing you some truth somehow. His Neptune then is in your 6th house. This is anybody his same age. Their Neptune's going to fall in your 6th. So there's a bit of transcendence here relative to your relationship to sacrifice, relative to your relationship to the Virgo healing archetype. The things about ourselves where we feel like, we need to, that we're not perfect or that we need to deny ourselves. And his Neptune's making a little square to your Jupiter and also to your Pluto. Again, this is generational. So it feels a bit like some transcendence that needs to happen in the area of sacrifice. I feel like you're sacrificing too much for this person is what I feel like. I feel like you deserve a lot more than what you're allowing yourself with this interaction. Doesn't mean that you have to get married to someone, but I think you deserve to be with someone who's not lying to someone or denying the truth. You know what I mean? Like, who cares what his girlfriend's really like? She could be a horrible person or she could be fantastic. But the fact that he's not open tells us that you're playing into that dynamic, so that's you're taking part in it. And so that's indirectly like you're participating in an untruth. Now, his Uranus in the 5th house is really exciting. That is one. And again, it's generational, but it sort of it tends to tell us that there's something about ourself, the sun, your sun in Aries, that needs to be freed, that needs to be liberated. And he's going to help you with that by being very exciting and electrical. And the relationship many times is like, it comes out of the blue, or it's like one of, really can be really sparky. Now, we would want to see interaspects to his Uranus. And what has he got that at? He's 17 degrees Sag. We have like an inconjunct to your Saturn. It's fairly wide. And it looks like there's a wide conjunction to your Neptune as well. So, I mean, the Saturn one is tough. The Uranus-Saturn inconjuncts definitely are tricky. It's like the part of you that is, especially conjunct the Moon, it just feels like exciting, but it's hard to make it work in the real world. Not that it can't, but it just tends to have a stop-go quality to it, okay? And then his Saturn in your 5th house, that really is, it's a Saturn retrograde, that really does feel a bit like, it feels sad is how it feels to me. It feels like it's going to ultimately restrict you and hold you, and even, it's like a Saturn captivation, it really. His Saturn's at 26. So yeah, I mean, his Saturn he's got his Saturn it captivates your Sun and your Mercury by an inconjunct. Those are the Magi Society, for example, they talk about this. Those are ones where we are sucked in to something with another person, and in the end it ends up hurting the person who is not the Saturn. The Saturn person has control, okay? So it's like we feel powerless to this person. They feel like an authority figure over us. It feels like we have to do what they tell us to do, kind of a thing. So, and I mean, you even kind of mentioned that. You mentioned like if he comes like and approaches you, it's almost like as though you don't have any power or control over him, which isn't true. You can say no unless he's a rapist or like a really toxic person. His Saturn is making a trine also to your moon, which is also a captivation. And so you don't ever want in a relationship one person to have more captivations than the other. Because if you do, that person who is the Saturn person will have more power or control over the other individual. You've got a Saturn in conjunct to his Jupiter, and you've got some other minor aspects. But I mean, he holds the more powerful. His in conjunct to your Sun and Mercury are really powerful. So I would say, because those are very personal planets, that he does have a lot of authority or control in the situation from your perspective. Then we've got his South Node falling into your 4th house. So it's a South Node in Scorpio in the 4th. And it could indicate a past life where there was a familial connection. It could also indicate a past life. The ruler for head Pluto is conjunct your Uranus, where you lived together in some sort of a setting where it was a group, collective, communal setting. That's also possible because of your Uranus in the 4th. I mean, it could have also been something where there was a war happening and you came together in a domestic situation because it was during a wartime. The South Node, his South Node making also a trine to your Cancer Sun. It does feel like you were someone who was helpful to him in a past incarnation in a way that was mothering and nurturing and comforting and warmth. You could have been a wife, possibly. I mean, you could have had lots of past lives of the person. I don't know. I'm not psychic. But it feels a bit more of everything else in the chart. Not necessarily like you were maybe a wife, but maybe when he was away, you were like his wife while he was away. If that makes any sense. I don't know. You can see what you think about that. His Pluto, we've got in the 4th. That definitely is, Pluto in the 4th is really powerful. But again, this is anybody born. I mean, within anyone with Pluto at the beginning of Scorpio or, towards the end of Libra is going to fall into your 4th house. So it's really generational. It's your own stuff and relative to people your same age. So it's going to trigger in you your moon stuff, which has to do with your lovability and where you belong and home and family and what that looks like. And Uranus is there to say you're here to be liberated from something emotionally. Your emotions are supposed to be liberated in this incarnation because it feels like they've been stuffed or kept hidden, or the sensitive soft part of yourself has been kind of denied. And so there's kind of a quality here of needing to be freed up to express that part of yourself. And the fact that his Sun opposes your Uranus, could say he's a perfect person to kind of, although anybody who's got a late Aries Sun or an early Taurus Sun is going to oppose your Uranus. It's just generational because your Uranus is, it's not generational, I'm sorry. It would be just anybody with that placement is going to trigger the Uranus and you're going to feel exciting and electrifying. We also, with Uranus currently opposing your Uranus, it's about to move into Taurus and it will be an exact opposition. That's kind of a period of time in life where we are facing many times a marriage to either unexpected circumstances or kind of life is short. It's, akin to the midlife crisis. It kind of ties into that period of time in life when we're kind of looking back at our life and we're like, have we accomplished everything we want to accomplish yet? We're sort of married to the fact that life is unpredictable and short, and we've many times at this point in life had maybe somebody that we love die. And so it's just a period of consciously like reflecting on life, but it can be many times through like exciting or crazy circumstances even, or relationships, that kind of thing. Okay, what else do we want to talk about here? His ascendant is in your 2nd. Okay, now that is important because if his birth time is correct, ascendant is tied into him, his body, him as an individual. Second house is Taurus, that's holding on to something. And your Ceres is also conjunct his sun. It's not exactly conjunct, but it's close. And you have Chiron conjunct Ceres, which says there's some healing to be done in the area of what you hold on to, right? And that's in Aries, which is ruled by your Mars in Pisces. So we may find ourselves holding on to and not wanting to let go of people or relationships that are ones where we're sacrificing ourselves for this other person. So that's a Mars and Pisces thing. Or we're escaping responsibility. We're not owning our responsibility in that interaction or what have you. That would be the shadow side of how that would express. Then if we move up, we don't have anything falling in your second, or second, first, 12th houses. But in the 11th house, we have Ceres, Chiron, in your 11th. So Ceres is what you hold on to, what you hunger for. He's got Ceres in Gemini. There's going to be a hunger for words, for affirmations. And with that being ruled by a Mercury in Aries conjunct Venus, he's going to look to his lovers to give him a sense of like naming him. This is really somebody who feels a little bit like a Lothario, like someone who's looking for women to validate who it is that he is, or just relationships, that kind of thing. So some worthiness issues in that area. And Chiron is sort of here to be healed in that area. And your Venus landing on his Chiron, it might be your relationship with each other that's here to sort of help him heal in that area of like his worthiness, I suppose. And also truth is another big one. Okay, and then his Mars is in your 10th, and his North Node's in your 10th. So, Mars is on the 10th and the 11th, so that could be read in either house, really. Mars and Taurus. Mars in the 10th is going to activate responsibility, duty, obligation in you, and, could be him. He's supposed to help you trigger that Capricorn stuff, kind of the Emperor. I mean, Emperor to a certain extent is the authority figure. But it's also the Saturn house, and it has to do with, like, the hard parts of life, the things that we have to face, the realities of life. His Mars is also, if you read it in your 11th, then you need to liberate and free that part of him, like let go of his Mars, let go of him, really. And that might be through a sexual relationship that is unorthodox and that is one where we don't have a commitment to one another. But to also question, is this fair? Does everybody know? Is it transparent? And his Mercury's in your 9th. So I think that it's activating, triggering in you truth. There's something about him that's going to feel real and true to you. Feel like he has some secrets or something to kind of offer you that helps you with your North Node, because your North Node's in Sag, right? And it's his Venus and his Mercury are conjunct the ruler of your North Node. So he's going to feel like a romantic partner who has some truth or some different perspective to give you that has to do with your path in this incarnation, about who you are. But I think also at the same time, we've got his Neptune sort of squaring your Jupiter, so you might not be seeing the truth always of the situation, maybe. Or maybe you're supposed to be in this relationship with him where it's about a dream and a fantasy. It can feel very romantic, but maybe it's, maybe it's to remind you of something from a past incarnation, maybe just to go meet with me or meet with a psychic or meet with other people who can pull past life information about the two of you that might sort of elucidate the relationship in this incarnation. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here for this. We will do, just to watch this, give me feedback, your thoughts, and then I've got you on my schedule to get you done. So I was going to do your forecast today, but then as I was doing your cards, and I pray before I do readings, I just felt like I needed to wait. So just watch this and any information that you want to share with me, and then we'll do the forecast next, and we'll wrap up. Okay, thanks, Laura. Talk to you later. Bye.